Hi everybody, my name is Chante Evans and I am the Student Services Manager at New Horizons, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about using a flip chart as a presentation tool. Some of the benefits of using a flip chart are that it can be used in a discussion form or it can be prepared ahead of time. It's really nice to be able to prepare it, but it's also nice to be able to use it spontaneously when needed in a classroom or in a meeting. Some of the objectives for today are for you guys to understand how to use a flip chart or facilitate with a flip chart within a presentation or discussion, understanding the importance of clear writing, the color of your writing and the size of your writing, and also understanding the best practices. As a part of our agenda today, we're going to be covering when to use a flip chart, what the advantages and disadvantages of using a flip chart are, and how to prepare a flip chart and flip charts, how you use a flip chart during a discussion, as well as best practice strategies. So some of the highlights or some of the uses of a flip chart: you can highlight the organization of a presentation, which means you can essentially outline an agenda. Do you guys know what's next in this presentation?
No.
No? Okay, that's because I don't have an agenda mapped out for you guys that you can look at right now clearly, but this would be a really good use for that. Another good use for a flip chart is using it as a visual reinforcement of your presentation. So using it for things like pointing out important vocabulary or definitions that are important to your presentation, or presenting graphs and charts that are part of the content that you're presenting to your audience. It's a good way to introduce formulas to your group. Say you're doing math or some type of science. Even in business, in my job, I use a lot of different formulas to figure out math for orders. So it's a good way to introduce that to your audience. It's a good way to summarize your content and what you're speaking about. And it's also a great way to brainstorm if you have a small group, or even in a big group if you're brainstorming for something, such as, what is your favorite ice cream? Randy, what's your favorite ice cream?
Chocolate.
What's your favorite ice cream, Jaden?
Chocolate.
Chocolate? Okay, and this would be a good way to list out your audience's favorite ice cream or whatever you might be working on that day. The next thing we're going to cover is advantages and disadvantages. Some advantages are that it's portable. As you guys can see, this is actually a tabletop flip chart, so I can move it, I can take it around wherever I want to, but even if it's a traditional flip chart, they are usually on stands. You can move that about the room as you need to. This is nice because you can put it in the middle of a conference table, you can put it on a desktop like this and be able to use it for any type of group, but also you can put it on a traditional stand. So these are really useful. It provides a great avenue, flip charts do, for preparing ahead of time. You can write out your notes for a class, for a meeting beforehand, and have it prepared without having to worry about writing it out on a chalkboard or a whiteboard. Another example of being able to prepare ahead of time is a PowerPoint presentation. A flash, a flip chart works very well in both big groups and small groups. Whether you're in a group of 2 and you're brainstorming, or you're in a class of 30 people or have an audience of 30 people, this is a useful tool no matter what size of group you're presenting to. And as I mentioned earlier, this is something that can be used with preparation or spontaneously. You can use it for discussion, you can use it to list out ideas, you can use it as a brainstorming tool. So it's really something that can be used across different forums. And then then the last advantage is that it allows for additional space. When you're using a blackboard or a whiteboard, like Jaden, when your teacher uses a whiteboard, she has to erase stuff when she runs out of room, right?
Yeah.
So there's lots of pages, so you don't run out of room, and it's permanent. So if you have somebody who maybe missed something during your presentation and wants to be able to go back to it, they're able to do so because it's still there. And unlike a whiteboard or a chalkboard, it didn't have to get erased because we ran out of room. Some disadvantages of a flip chart are that it requires neat penmanship. So Randy, you probably couldn't write on a flip chart because your handwriting isn't so great, right?
Yeah.
But as long as you have neat handwriting and you spend the time to make it neat, it can be useful. But if you don't have neat handwriting, or you don't feel that your handwriting is neat enough, something like a PowerPoint is more useful to you because it's something that you can type out and that your audience would be able to clearly read. The other disadvantage is that it limits the amount of information that can be shared. While there are a lot of pages on a flip chart, if we only have one flip chart, then you do run out of space. In some instances, it might require multiple flip charts, but if you don't have those, you run into running out of space. And then the last kind of disadvantage is that if you're going to prepare this ahead of time, it does require your time, and these are not free, so it does require a financial commitment as well. Okay, so preparing a flip chart. One of the most important things is to make sure that when you're preparing a flip chart, you're putting the information in sequential order. You don't want to be flipping through pages trying to find information that's a part of your presentation because you don't know what order you put your flip chart in. So it's really important that when you are using your flip chart as a way to prepare ahead of time, you want to make sure it's all in order so that you can stay organized throughout your presentation. The other important factor when you're preparing a flip chart ahead of time is to make sure that you are distributing your time across each page evenly. You don't want to spend an hour on one page and 5 minutes on all the others. If you have a topic that is extremely important to your presentation, you want to make sure that you dedicate multiple pages to that topic. And the last thing is just to make sure you familiarize yourself with the content and making sure you understand the content that you're delivering. And that goes hand in hand with making sure everything's in sequential order. You want to make sure you understand your content, where it is within your flip chart, so that you sound knowledgeable throughout your presentation. So using flip charts in discussion. So there's 3 separate ways that you can use your flip chart within a discussion. As I mentioned, it's a great tool to use during brainstorming. Our idea or our example was the ice cream, what your favorite ice cream is. There's a way of listing out ideas, idea development or problem solving. So you can use it if, again, you're in math or science and you have an issue or a problem that you're trying to solve. This is a good way to do it in a group setting. So some best practice strategies. As I mentioned, some great situations to use a flip chart is for when you're delivering something, you want to prepare something ahead of time and have something tactical for your audience to see. That's a great situation to use it in, but also what I previously mentioned, which was brainstorming, problem solving, and idea development. The other best practice has to do with writing. And I'm going to actually flip my page. So, can you guys see that?
Yes.
But you can't see it very clearly, right? So this what I wrote here is what I would write on a normal size paper, like 8.5 by 11, what you find in a notebook, or what you put in your printer. And that's probably somebody way in the back isn't going to be able to see what that says. But as I go down, my handwriting gets larger. So something that's really important to understand is making sure you understand how large your room is, so therefore you understand how large you need to write, but making sure that you pick bold colors that are going to show up. I wrote flip charts in yellow, and you guys might be able to see it because you're a little bit closer, but somebody in the back of the room probably is not going to be able to see what that says. So it's really important to be kind of in this size. This size probably if you're in a smaller group, smaller room, and then this size if you're in a large room and have to cater to a bigger group of people. Do you guys have any questions about flip charts?
No.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my presentation. You guys have a wonderful night.